What up, everybody? Who's tuning in to this edition of Brown World Podcast. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jackson. And so this episode, I'm going to get into the NBA draft lottery that happened last night. I'm not going to do, my whole mock draft thing, just because, honestly, I don't know enough about college basketball to give my full opinion on who I think should go where or who should take who and stuff like that. I'm just going to go over, the draft lottery itself, and just kind of, some of my little 2 cents on it. And then, little Lakers and what they should do with their number 2 pick that they got. Thank God the ping pong balls bounced the right way. Supposedly, fairly, but who knows? I'm just messing around. And then if I got some time at the end, I'll do a little bit on the playoffs and how boring they are. Just got to come out and say it. But jumping right into the draft lottery last night. Just right off the bat, they got to find a way to make this thing, more interesting, man. I mean, I get it. They're trying to blow it all out for, to make money and to make a spectacle of it and all that stuff. And I get, and I get that the whole point of it is for like the last, 5-10 minutes where that's where all the drama is. Once they make the announcements and stuff, I get that. But then, the first other 20 minutes or so, I mean, they really kind of figure out a way to fix it. It was hard to watch, honestly. Like, it was just, it was whack, like, straight up. I mean, people were just complaining on Twitter, too many commercials, guys like Brandon Ingram even spoke out and were like, enough of these guys, let players talk hoops, like, and this is another conversation for another day with, these quote-unquote pro analysts, giving their opinions and stuff like that. And I mean, look, like Tom Penn is a great journalist and a great guy who covers the NBA and stuff like that. And, I take nothing away from him. It's just at the same time, it's like, you got to call a spade, man. And, a lot of that stuff was just like they're trying to make it too like showy and using the gimmicky freaking look at the slide the player from here to here and all this stuff, and it's just they're trying to do too much. And like I said, I don't know, I don't have the answers really. I think they should just kind of try to not dumb it down, but try to be less hokey and less gimmicky and less spectacle-y about it, and just let the drama, be I guess the selling point. As far as the actual draft lottery itself, for those of you who don't know out there, the Celtics got the number 1 pick. It looks like they can thank the the Brooklyn Nets for that. Lakers, like I mentioned earlier, got the 2nd pick. And I'll just run through it real quick. The Sixers got the 3rd pick. Phoenix is going 4th. The Kings are picking 5th and 7th. 5th and 10th. Sorry about that. The Magic are picking 6th. Then it goes Minnesota, New York, Dallas, again, Sacramento at 10, Charlotte, Detroit, Denver, Miami. And then I forget however many roll out the what's it called, the lottery, but so those are the main picks. I mean, man, sorry, Nick fans. It really just can't catch a break. And that's the first thing I thought was, I mean, they had this, tumultuous season, ended, with some drama, from, the guy who's supposed to be in charge, Big Phil, and, then they end up with the 8th pick when they could have the 7th pick. But I mean, I don't want to talk too much about the Celtics, being a Laker fan and all, but, they definitely have a lot of options with this first pick. They can trade it if they want to. People are saying, should they trade it for a guy like, Jimmy Butler, Paul George, this and that. I'm not too sure, just because, it looks like they're going to take Malik Monk. Markelle Fultz. Whichever the guy from Washington is. Like I said, I don't know. This is all off top. You know what I mean? Because I just personally don't really care about college basketball that much. But Markelle Fultz, he's good. I'm not gonna lie, he's good. And he's the type of guard, I guess, from what I've seen, a little bit that I've seen, and a lot of stuff that I've heard, he's the type of guard that like doesn't necessarily need the ball to be the most effective, which is good for what they need in Boston, considering Isaiah Thomas is going to be the most ball dominant guard that they have. And then like I said, I'll get to the Lakers later. The Sixers, man, really. They thought they could get the good luck charm with Joel Embiid, but third still isn't bad. They're going to be able to get a good guy. They're more than likely going to go after a guard, with whether it's De'Aaron Fox or some of the other guys. There's that French dude out there I know. Guys like that. It could happen. Who knows? And then again, they could just completely go out of left field and maybe even trade it. Who knows? Who knows with the Sixers? So yeah, and then but the most interesting team to me is the Kings. I think that they actually this is the most upside that they've probably had as far as an off season that they've had, and I can't even remember how long. I love Boogie. Everyone, if you listen to the podcast, but like I said, they just needed to wipe their slate clean from him and move on and try to start over. And these 2 draft picks definitely could help. With the 5 pick, they could possibly take De'Aaron Fox and get the point guard they need. And with the 10 pick, depending on how far he falls, they might be able to get Monk or another Kentucky guy, like I think it was his name, like Bam or whatever. They can get. If they can get those 2 guys who clearly they, all those Kentucky guys, as you saw after they lost, and was it the Elite 8? I think how close they all are. Yeah, those are 2 good core guys to build around, So yeah, like I said, things are looking up for the Kings. They could possibly trade those picks. I'm not sure. Who knows? But like I said, a lot of options in this draft. Like I said, because there's so much talent at the top, that the top teams could they have a lot more leverage than other teams might have had in the past, especially with these picks, and with a lot more like top free agents being more available and stuff like that coming on. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. But like I said, the main thing for me was just the actual draft show, I guess you want to call it, itself. I was on ESPN. When to me, the best thing was just getting to, see my boo Cassidy Hubbard for about 30 minutes. So, love you, Cassidy. And, yeah, they really got to figure out way to fix it. And, yeah, so moving on to the Lakers in particular, it's like I mentioned before, they have the number 2 pick, which is great, but they also, which a lot more people, kind of slipped under the radar with that, I guess to most people, is that they also got to keep their 2019 pick. If they finished out of the top 3, they would have lost both this year's pick and the 2019 pick, which is not good. Definitely not good. So yeah, like I said, a lot of options they have with this pick. Who knows if they're going to trade it? I know I don't. I don't expect them to. But then again, you never know. You just never know. They have, like I said, there's a lot of difference on who they could pick. Just all depends on who the Celtics take, really. They could take Fultz, Ball, Monk, Fox. They could take a bunch of different guys. I personally want Lonzo Ball. If you've been listening to previous podcasts, you would know how much of a Ball fan I am. And only Lonzo Ball, not LeVar. And if you know me, you know how vocal I am about my disdain for the way that LeVar Ball is handling everything. It's not. It's just how annoying it gets and kind of how distracting it can be. It's just, like I said, you just don't want distractions. And I get he's trying to build a brand. I get that and stuff like that. But, the best thing that, if the Lakers do get Lonzo, and I'm speaking all of this out of hypothetical, the best thing that can happen is if Lonzo just plays well. That's the best thing. That's the thing he has to do, and I think he can do it. You know, a lot of people I get in these debates and stuff like that, discussion with my friends. We're talking about who should they take, and I always say, like, I'm riding with Lonzo Ball. A lot of people think, people always the biggest argument people give against me is, they should take De'Aaron Fox or something like that because, look what De'Aaron Fox did to him in the Kentucky game. It's like, you know what? That's just one game. The Kentucky strategized well against Lonzo. They really didn't give him a chance to, distribute the way he wanted to and stuff like that. And it's just one game. And honestly, I kind of thought about it a little bit, but big up to Club Trillionaire Mark Titus over there at The Ringer. He mentioned it today in a podcast that, one thing that kind of, I don't think of the words he used or the best way to explain it, but it's always the whole thing where, things have always been so easy for Lonzo. No, I'm not saying it's easy, but I mean, he's so talented, that things relatively came easy to him. He didn't really have to face a lot of adversity because of how good he was, and that Kentucky game was the first real adversity that he had to face in the tournament, and he lost. And you could look at it in one of two ways, where it can either hurt his confidence, or you can, do that whole thing where you can say, oh yeah, De'Aaron Fox is better, he shut him down, or he did this and that. Or you can look at it as that's the first time it happened. Something like that has happened to Lonzo, and, a guy as good as he is and as competitive as he is will do it, make sure that something like that doesn't happen again. Now, obviously that doesn't mean that it won't happen again, but a guy as competitive as Lonzo is, will do what he can to use that as motivation to get better, to keep working in the gym, to keep that in the back of his mind, that, the whole thing where, like, every athlete always say it after, it's like, you don't want to feel that feeling anymore. You know what I mean? You don't want to feel that feeling again after, losing and being eliminated. And so I think that's definitely a plus. People are trying to use it as negative. I think it could be a plus for a guy like Lonzo. And and also my biggest thing is, guys like De'Aaron Fox, guys like Monk, guys like Fultz. These guys are just tremendous scorers. They're putting up crazy numbers. We a lot of people see it and stuff like that. But how many of those type of guys have you seen come and go from college? Guys who, light it up. Guys like, Eric Bledsoe and Brandon Knight, Eric Gordon, Michael Beasley, OJ Mayo, all these guys who, were just putting up astronomical college numbers and were known as these great scorers, and, then who was, maybe the next Kobe, next MJ, next this, next that. And they just, they're just become the guy. I mean, like I said, there's nothing wrong with being, sustaining an NBA career. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying that these guys are bad or anything, but I mean, they're just, they're not, in that pantheon, as, the GOAT Bill Simmons likes to put it. They're not in the pantheon. And I'm not saying that Alonzo can be in the pantheon, but we've seen the scorer, athletic type guys before. But we haven't seen a guy like Lonzo before, or at least in a long time. I mean, I'll say it. I've been saying it. I'll say it again. I compare him. He's like Jason Kidd that can shoot already. You know what I mean? His court vision, his ability to to see the play happen before it happens, like Rondo style, Jason Kidd style, Chris Paul style, where, when the ball's in his hands and they're running, he sees the play developing beforehand and he makes the right pass so that it can happen, that kind of stuff. And, not a lot of guys have that ability. People think you can teach that. It's something that's not so easily taught, You either have it or you don't. And Lonzo has it. And, you see it when you watch UCLA games. They run, they essentially have an NBA style offense, real, up and down, run and gun, not necessarily 8 seconds or less, but it's a more fast pace, like I said, fast paced, up and down, run and gun style. And then he has, a lot of shooters around him so he has a lot of options on where to distribute the ball, and he's got a couple, big guys, who can, he can feed the ball to down low or run pick and rolls with and stuff like that. So he's got a lot of options. And I mean, honestly, like, what kind of team does that sound like? A team that has, guys who can shoot from the outside already, a lot of guards who can shoot, paired with, some big men who you can give serviceable NBA big men who you can give the ball to down low on pick and rolls and all that stuff. It's the Lakers. The Lakers. That sounds exactly like the Lakers. And they can run, and they have Luke Walton, who is one of the, who was on the coaching staff of the coach who, essentially helped perfect that run and gun style in Luke Walton, I just feel it's the best fit. It makes the most sense. He can automatically bring that spark that you need back to the Lakers that they've been missing the last couple of seasons. And like I said, putting the sideshow, off to the side. This is where, like I said, sideshow, first word of sideshow, side. Put it off to the side. At this point, it's all just barking and bullshit. You know what I mean? And the best way to ignore, the bully who keeps yelling at everybody and stuff, just ignore him. You know what I mean? They're just looking for attention. So the best thing we can do is ignore him. Ignore LeVar. And, you know what I mean? Like, all these suckers out there, and all these freaking sheep and these fucking lame ass people out there who are buying into it, and like, he's so funny and entertaining, and like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, you're part of the problem. So, you know what I mean? Like, he feeds off, dumb people out there like that, who probably the same type of people who think internet memes, you know what I mean, or people who make memes or serious kind of stuff. And I don't want to go down that road and just I'm gonna get off my soapbox now. But more than likely, if the Lakers get Lonzo, something will be done in order to keep LeVar at bay. Because like I said, the last thing you want is distractions. You've seen it, happen in the past for sure with different, other athletes like Tiger Woods, the Williams sisters, similar situation when Eli Manning was getting drafted and they didn't want him. Supposedly Archie Manning didn't want Eli to go to the Chargers. If you don't remember, for those of you who don't remember, look that up. I believe it was Archie Manning didn't want him to go. Like I said, don't quote me on that. And for whatever reason, it's whatever reason he didn't want him to go to the Chargers. And I mean, if you, like I said, I don't remember the reason. But if you do know, hit me up and let me know on Twitter or something like that. But like I said, we've seen this stuff happen before, and it's not the first time, and it definitely will be the last. It's just in the whole social media age, everything getting blown out of proportion. Yeah, like I said, they'll figure something out. They have to figure something out. Whether it's Magic or it's Pelinka or it's even, Jeannie Buss, like whomever it is. They have to be able to work something out. They're the ones in control. They have to, they can't let the inmates run the asylum, essentially. So I think that they can do that. Like I said, this all will only apply if the Lakers take ball. So keep that in mind also. But like I said, they could even potentially trade the pick. I don't know where or who they would want to get. Everyone was saying Boogie. I mean, as much as I love Boogie, I wouldn't really want him on this team right now, just the way it's constructed. I'd rather have Ball, like I said. What's the point of having all these great scorers if you don't have someone who can get them the ball? You know what I mean? And so, now there's been some rumors out there that, people are inquiring about D'Angelo Russell. And so this, of course, in, the, hot take age now, this, to everyone out there, this means that Lakers are going to trade him, and it doesn't mean that. It's the same thing when, Kristaps Porzingis made it known that he was upset with his situation or what's going on in New York, and a bunch of teams inquired to say, hey, What would you get? What would it take to get Kristaps? They're just inquiring. They're just asking questions. They're nothing is set in stone, and this is with the Lakers get the number 2 pick, the writings on the wall that they're probably because this is such a guard heavy draft that they're probably going to take a guard, and they feel that and that's a good sign. Think about this. They're inquiring about D'Angelo Russell because they know that he's good. They know that he has talent. They know that he has potential. So that's a good sign. If I'm D'Lo, I don't take this as a thing where like, oh my God, I might get traded, and I'm thinking it's a good thing that people want me because they know what talents I can bring to the table. And if the Lakers are smart, they don't trade him. They keep him. And like I said, I've mentioned it before, in previous podcasts. Like I think that D'Lo is better served as an off the ball guard. He's I've used this example before. I don't think he's a true point guard. I just think he just is a scoring guard, not a shooting guard, a scoring guard who happens to be able to pass really well is also. But scoring is his main thing. He can shoot well. He can post up guys. He can make the passes and stuff, but his main thing, like I said, ball. When you see Lonzo bring the ball up court, it looks a lot different from when D'Lo brings the ball up the court. And D'Lo is comfortable catching on the catch and shoot, coming off screens and shooting, posting guys up, cutting through the lane and finishing. Like he's more comfortable scoring like that. And think about that lineup. You can go small, you can go Ball, D'Lo, Clarkson, Nance, and Randall. You can do that. Or you could also have Ball with you could have Ball out there with Clarkson and D'Lo, and you can also have Randall. You could also have Zubac. You could put Nance and Zubac out there too, if you want to get them a little bit more down low scoring and stuff like that. There's a lot of options. Like I said, the options are there, and I think it'd be dumb to trade away a player as good as D'Lo or has much potential as D'Lo. And I didn't even mention Brandon Ingram too. I keep forgetting Brandon Ingram. My bad, dude. But you can throw him in there too if you want to go small. You could also have Ingram and Nance out there. You could have Ingram and Randall. You could have Ingram can play the 4 or something like that. And who knows? Who knows if the Lakers are gonna get Paul George or whomever else? Like who knows? I don't. That's for sure. Writings on the wall that it might happen. So if I'm the Lakers, I wouldn't trade anybody right now. Hold on to what you can. Don't trade anything. Keep it. You know what I mean? Like just hang on to it and see what you got. Because it'd be smart to just, if Paul George is coming to Lakers regardless, why would you trade for him? You know what I mean? Don't break up the team for something that's already going to happen. And so yeah, that's what I think they should. That's how I think things would go with the Lakers. Like I said, you can take that with a grain of salt if you want. Because like I said, I'm not the biggest college basketball dude. I just know what I know, and I know what I see, and I see that Ball is going to be pretty damn good. And it doesn't take a freaking expert on ESPN or whatever to figure that out. And like I said, I'm not here to, like I said, if you were expecting me to talk about, other college draft prospects and stuff, I'm sorry. I'm not that guy. I don't know all that stuff. Yeah, I think I got a little bit of time left. So I just want to talk about the playoffs a little bit. And, all people talk about is the parity in the league, parity in the NBA, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. And for the third year in a row, it's going to be the same two teams playing in the finals. And if I'm not mistaken, it might be the second year in a row that the number 1 seed and number 2 seed are playing each other in the conference finals as well. These playoffs are so boring. And like I said, again, I get it's all about money. It's all about business. Where it's just we know who's the best, and I get that anything can happen and yada yada or whatever and all that stuff. Everyone's like anything is possible. Look at the KG said it. It's like yeah, well KG was on the best team in the whole league at that time. So, but I mean, does it really take 7 games to determine, you know, that LeBron and Steph and KD are gonna play each other again? Like, come on. And like I said, it's a bad. And like I said, I know Kawhi is hurt, and that sucks. And also, side note, Zaza did that shit on purpose. He knows it. The only people who are saying that it was not on purpose are people who don't play basketball. And I'm seeing actually a lot of people who like I respect a lot on Twitter and stuff saying that it was an accident. And it blows my mind that they think that. I mean, and then the whole thing is, well, he's not looking, and people are using like, well, the peripheral vision thing is a stupid argument and stuff. It's like, dude, you don't close out on people the way he did. You jump. You don't 2-step into it. You know what I mean? And one, it didn't get called for a foul because the whole point is supposed to give the guy a landing spot. And two, like I said, you don't close out on someone like that. Like that's the thing. And Zaza's the type of guy who's been known to just because he doesn't get caught doesn't mean he doesn't do it. You know what I mean? It's like just because Marcin Gortat doesn't get called for moving screens all the time doesn't mean he doesn't set moving screens. You know what I mean? And Zaza's the type of guy that's known to you know to put in the dirty work and stuff. You know what I mean? Like he'll set the hard screen and you know do some other shit like that. And like I said, it's like and it's the thing is if something happens to Zaza, if something were to happen to Zaza, like repercussion wise, it doesn't hurt the team one bit. So that's why he had nothing to lose doing something like that. And he knows he's been playing basketball long enough. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, again, not trying to go down that road, getting off my soapbox now, but Zaza did that shit on purpose. And if you don't think so, you're a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Straight up. But yeah, I mean, like I said, can we just get fast forward to the finals already? It'll be the rubber match, the one that we all want. You know what I mean? LeBron and the whole Cavs, they were freaking, they were jugging us this whole regular season or the second half of the regular season. Everyone's like saying, "Oh, hey, can they flip the switch? Are they done?" And this and that. And everyone's just overreacting and stuff for clicks and headlines and all that stuff. But I mean, we all knew, you know what I mean? If any smart NBA fan knows that LeBron's the best player on the planet, and he knows that regardless of where they seed, they're going to be in the finals because it's LeBron freaking James. You know what I mean? And like I said, they've been holding it. They've just been keeping it in the tank this whole time because, like I said, they know they don't have to go all out, and they don't want to show their hand early either. That's the thing. So, and then with the Warriors, the Spurs not having Kawhi definitely is going to help them, be able to keep their guys' minutes down and stuff like that. But I mean, man, it's bad. It's really, really bad. Like the quality of these games. And I mean, like I said, the Celtics and the Wizards had a great series. Like I'll give them that. It was a great series. Really hard fought. But I mean, if you really think that the Celtics have a chance to get at least one game against the Cavs, then I don't know, man. Maybe you gotta get checked out or something, because the way that LeBron's coming off LeBron and the Cavs coming off 9 days of rest, they don't have anyone that can guard him, and the way that the Celtics have not been rebounding and not dominating the paint, all they can do is just bring in Channing Frye, Tristan Thompson, these guys. They can just take over down low. So yeah, these playoffs are boring. Can we just fast forward to the finals already? Yeah, man. I mean, and like I said, that's all I'm looking forward to. So don't expect any, hard-hitting journalism and analysis on any of these basketball games until the finals come around. So, like I said, just can't wait for the finals. All right, so that's it for me today. Just wanted to, like I said, just go over my thoughts on the draft and all that stuff, and hopefully the Lakers can do. Hopefully the Lakers make the right choice. No matter what they do, whether they keep the pick, hang on to the pick, use the pick, or trade the pick, whatever they do. I hope they make the right choice. And I think I've heard to mention this earlier, but if anyone knows out there how long it's been since a team or since another team has done what the Celtics have done, where they finished the number one seed, going into the playoffs, as well as securing the number one pick. This might be a first time thing. I think I'm not sure. If you know, like I said, hit me up on Twitter. Let me know. And if you got anything else you want to say, you know, what I mean, whether you think that whether you think the Lakers should take Lonzo, whether you think LeVar will be too much of a distraction, if you think the Lakers should take someone else that I'm not thinking of, if you think that they should trade it, who this and that. If you got any stuff like that, like I said, go ahead and hit me up on all my ats on Twitter, Instagram. You can comment on SoundCloud, you can comment on YouTube, you can comment on wherever else and stuff like that. Just hit me up in all the ats down below. And like always, if you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe, like, share, and comment, please. And again, like always, thank you for all the support out there. More and more people I've been running into have been saying, "Hey, I listened to the podcast, I like it," and stuff like that. And it really means a lot to me. So I appreciate all the support out there. And also, just a quick question: if I were to make, not necessarily merch and stuff like that, just wondering if anyone would be interested in some. Like I said, if you are, again, hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. Let me know. Yeah, like I said, we'll just have to. It can be a pretty interesting few weeks with the draft coming up and stuff like that. And I think all NBA teams come out either tomorrow or later this week. So that'll definitely throw I guess a wrinkle or two, something like that, into a lot of decisions for different players and stuff like that. Depending on whether or not they make it on the NBA teams. So there's that. I'll try to get back to you guys again at the end of the week with another podcast. May or may not be about sports. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, go Lakers, and catch you guys in the next one. Peace.